Hello and welcome, guys. My name's Glorious Badger, and welcome to what is the fourth in our series of painting the Horus Heresy legions. We are painting the White Scars today, and that's all there is to it. We're going to do, as stated many times, a very basic tabletop-ready version of this. There won't be any sort of red trim on it or anything like that. We will come back in a further video and do some sort of red markings and such like and stuff like that, along with basing and a few more little finishing extras, so to speak. But this is going to be the basic version, so if that's what you need, this is the video for it. Saying that, to start off with, I'm painting all miniatures from a black primed base. So for White Scars, that is going to be a little bit extra work for us. If you start off with a sort of medium grey or indeed a white, then that's probably make things a bit easier and slightly quicker for you. But I just wanted to sort of have everything on a level playing field, so to speak. So let's just get stuck into it. All right, here is the marine we're going to be using. As I said, it has been primed black, and we are going to paint the leg. First colour, Fenrisian grey. I have watered it down. In fact, probably slightly too much on this. However, I've got a large cup of tea. I've got a film on in the background, and we're just going to paint on each layer, wait for it to dry, and then come back with further layers until we've got a nice, even coat. I would definitely say painting white, building up thin layers of paint is the way to go, rather than rushing ahead with a couple of thick coats is not the move. So that is what we're going to do. Wait for that to dry. And this is basically what we end up with. We've got a nice even coat, much like that. That is the Fenrisian grey, or your mid-tone grey if you've used that as a primer. Now, Celestra grey is what you would start off with from a mid-grey, and it's what we're going to use right now. Thin layers, we are going to use this as a base colour. We're going to leave a tiny bit of the Fenrisian grey in the deep recesses, sort of like on those armour panels of the boots, right there. And we are going to, as before, multiple thin coats is the way to do it. And we're just going to smack on the base coat right there. I'm going to leave a tiny bit of blue at the base of the sort of shin pad. I don't know what those things are supposed to be called. Lower leg armor, right above those like weird feet things. And there we go. A nice even coat. And those are the shapes I want to leave in there for the recesses. You don't have to do that, but that's how I like to do it. Now, Ulthuan grey and some Lamian medium. I'm going to use that to thin it down rather than water in this case. And we are going to start building up that brightness. And I'm starting with that thing for some reason. Starting to put in the edge highlights, and just so we got a nice opaque amount of colour there. Working on the upper thigh plate right there. As always, thin layers is the way to go. It's the way to get a nice even coat of paint. And also I'm going to paint a little bit under there. I'm not going any brighter underneath, I don't think, though. And that's basically the first layer of paint. As you can see, it's not very even, but further layers are definitely going to be put down. Vallejo Metal Colour German grey for the undersuit colour. We're going to thin it down a fair amount and just get to work framing those armour panels. And checking out my Instagram at instagram.com/gloriousbadger. As you can see, that white armor has been improved. We did put down multiple layers of Ulthuan grey. We had thinned it down with Lamian medium, and it looks pretty good now. That German grey is flowing nicely into those panels, and it's basically the undersuit color I always use. Regardless, I think, of chapter or legion, it generally does the job. And then moving on to Nuln oil, which is the color I use to shade sort of the recesses, the ridges, not the ridges, the opposite of ridges. Anyway, we get that Nuln oil onto those bits of undersuit, and it shades it very nicely. And I just leave it at that. I don't generally, certainly for line units, I don't highlight those individual ridges of the undersuit. For characters, yes, but not in this case. And there's a bit of slow motion action as I finish off the undersuit shading. Moving on to Ulthuan grey. Very nice, well done. And some P3 Morrow white. I do a 50-50 mix, so one drop of each. And we're going to do some big, fat, chunky highlights on the armor. For some reason, I'm sort of doing final edge highlighting right there, but I do make that a chunky edge highlight shortly. I just want to make sure it's nice and opaque for the finish. And I wish that was slightly better on camera, but we are improving slowly. Making sure we're getting all the sort of the upper edges, all of the edges of the armor with this color, and we're being a bit rough with it. We don't have to be too fine with it. We are being nice and chunky. That was P3 Morrow White. I don't quite know what happened with the camera, but this is the final edge highlight. I wanted to leave this until after I'd done the undersuit because I was slightly concerned about, well, that black wash running everywhere. So edge highlighting all the little weird toes. These boots freak me out a little bit. I don't like the idea of toe socks either, so just excuse me on that. Edge highlighting the, well, all of the armor parts, basically, we can get our brush to with the pure white. Building up a couple of layers. Uh-oh, Mephiston red has just appeared. Now, I said I wasn't going to be painting like the sort of lightning things, but I thought a bit of red. This is the same recipe that we'll be using to do our lightning stripes and things. So if you really want to do it, these are the colors that I use. I've thinned down some Mephiston red, and we are getting some red onto the backpack. Multiple coats. Obviously, I got lots of tea to keep me company, so I don't mind waiting for paint layers to dry. And then once we've got that done, we're going to use some Retributor armor, and we are going to paint those little ridged bits right there. Check out my Instagram. And, yeah, so we're going to do the gold. On these ridges, we're also going to do the miniatures, the rivets on the shoulder pad in the exact same colors. So you won't see me doing that in this particular thing, but I'll be using the exact same colors to do the rivets. Making sure we get the edges of those, I don't know what those things are supposed to be called. Anyway, we'll be getting the edges. And now we're going to be shading that with Agrax Earthshade. Not only are we going to shade the gold, we're also going to be sort of recess shading the red itself. What was I doing that? I have no idea. Anyway, so we're going to run that Agrax Earthshade into any of the recesses on the red. This is the old Agrax. I'm afraid I don't have access to the new one quite yet because I haven't purchased it because the other one hasn't run out yet. Once that's dried, we'll go back and make sure that that red is nice and bright. So we'll tidy up any sort of spillages that have happened with the Agrax and with the Mephiston red. And wait for that to dry. As you can see, that is bringing back the opaqueness that the Agrax might have disturbed. Okay, Evil Sunz Scarlet is up next. We're going to do a bit of a fat, chunky edge highlight with this color. As you can see, those are not really edge highlights. They're just sort of chunky lines. We will be using a different color for the final edge highlight. Don't forget to pick out those rivets, though, folks. I have forgotten in the past and only realized later, so embarrassing. I've had to go back sometimes. But yeah, don't forget them. They're very easy to paint. Just a dab of paint and you're done. Couple of layers before moving on to Wild Rider Red for our final edge highlight. Making sure we're getting all the edges and the sort of upper facing edges of the vents and stuff. And the rivets. Don't forget the rivets with this final highlight. And as I said before, I will be using these exact same colors to do any sort of lightning things that the White Scars have. Any zigzags, any of that stuff. We'll be using the exact same colors in a further video, no doubt. So, but I thought I would just show you anyway, just in case you're desperate to know. Okay, Retributor armor and Liberator gold. Basically, we're going to punch that gold back in just to sort of refine where the sort of shiny parts are of this gold. Tidying up the Agrax Earthshade. Then moving on to Liberator gold, we're doing a sort of more vertical, upwards facing shine. Using this. Same deal on the rivets. We'll be sort of standing the miniature up and painting the upper surfaces. Aha! Vallejo Metal Colour Steel. All right. We're doing all of the steel bits. So all these tubings, the vents, the big exhaust pipes, whatever you want to call them. We're going to do those with steel. And then we're going to shade that with Nuln oil. But I'm not completely coat the miniature in Nuln. So certainly those pipes right there will coat with it. And but otherwise, we want to kind of be quite accurate with the Nuln. I want to get it like in the recesses there. I don't really want to have to break out the steel again and to sort of tidy it up again. It saves a bit of time. Being accurate with the washes where possible. So into right there and the sort of like the sort of where it flares inwards. And then we're going to use aluminium. And this is quite a bright color. So it's going to be an edge highlight for the steel. It's definitely quite bright, so do be careful with it. You could use a shade. You could go 50-50 between this and steel and sort of work your way up if you so desire. But I'm not going to, for this line miniature at least. Make sure we get a bit of those things there to catch some of the light. And we're also going to use the aluminium color as a sort of specular highlight on the gold itself. Like right along the top right there, as you can see. Pretty much it. Nice and basic. And I'm happy with that. Making sure we've got everywhere that needs to be gotten. Okie dokie. So that's that. That's our miniature, and we're going to move on to Mephiston Red. Unfortunately, this was slightly too watered down. We are going to do the lenses with the Mephiston Red. So we are going to get that first coat down. Turns out later I am having to go back and tidy up some of the red, which sort of went a bit too crazy. That was my fault. The paint was slightly too watered down. I didn't check, as you can see right there. It ran all over the place. That is not what we want, friends. However, I do have patience, so I can just wait for it to dry and go back. And that is a glaze right there. So that was a thin down, and we just glazed it underneath. Moving on to Evil Sunz Scarlet, we are going to paint that lens in a bit more. Slightly different from the Iron Warriors, where we use fluorescent paint today. We're just going to use regular red paint. So we give that a go this time. I'm using Wild Rider Red to do that, almost the final highlight on these lenses. Just the inner part of the eyes itself. Nice and easy. I just want to leave that dark part underneath and at the back of the lenses. Going on to Flash Gitz Yellow for the sort of basically the center of the eye lens. Going to get some of that yellow in. It was very dry that day and it wasn't quite how we wanted it. And then finally, P3 Morrow White, we're going to try and get that glint in at the back of the eye right there. That was quite strenuous. I don't think I do the other side. I do tidy up a little bit of where that glaze went a bit haywire. And this is our finished miniature. I have had to go in afterwards and tidy up a few bits and pieces with some more white, etc. off camera. However, I am pretty happy with this. I think, as I said at the beginning of the video, starting off with a black primer is not a good move. Starting off with like a mid-grey or indeed a white would be a better move. However, I did give my reasonings and I'm pretty happy with the result as it stands. Now, I will be doing a further video on the basing, but you'll have to check that out. And to make sure you don't miss it, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell for notifications, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you and goodbye.